Well, it's time to read the Bible. And although I don't mind reading this because there's a lot of interesting information in it, and there are names in here from the lineage of Jesus Christ in the book of Matthew, the New Testament. And there are reasons for the way things happen here. There are, for instance, the way a kinsman redeemer was supposed to act in ancient Israel, things like this. And Judah, he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and his sons didn't do what they were supposed to do. There's the good and bad here. A lot of bad, so I don't like to read it out loud. Judah and Tamar, Genesis chapter 38. It happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira, a friend of his. And there Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. Well, he took her and went in to her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name the son of Judah. Well, she conceived again and bore him another son, and she called his name Onan. Yet again she bore him another son, and she called his name Shelah. Well, Judah was in Chezib when she bore him, and Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. She is in the line of Christ. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, his brother, "Go in to your brother's wife," that's brother, "and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, a kinsman, and raise up offspring for your brother." So, well, the widows, they had a hard time in those days if they had no children. She had no children. And raise up offspring for her. Continue the line of your brother. But Onan, he knew that the offspring would not be his. So, whenever he went in to his brother's wife, he would waste the semen on the ground, so as not to give offspring to his brother. And what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death also. Then Judah, he said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah, my son, grows up, my last son." For he feared that he would die like his brothers. So Tamar, she went and remained in her father's house. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. When Judah was comforted, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, and he and his friend Hira, the Adulamite. And when Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep," she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For when she was told, "Your father-in-law is going up," she got ready for him. She was going to trick him. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she'd not been given to him in marriage, as Judah had promised. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He turned to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come in to you," for he didn't know that she was his daughter-in-law, you see. She said, "What will you give me that you may come into me?" He answered, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." And she said, "If you give me a pledge until you send it." He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" Now, she was no dummy. She replied, "Your signet," that would be a signet ring, "and your cord, and your staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her, and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood again. Well, when Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, that would bend the signet and the cord and the staff, he didn't, the Adulamite, his friend, he didn't find her. And he asked the men of the place, "Where's the cult prostitute who was at a dam at the roadside?" And they said, "Well, no cult prostitute's been here." So he turned to Judah and he said, "I've not found her." Also the men of the place said, "No cult prostitute has been here." And Judah replied, "Let her keep the things as her own, or we shall be laughed at. You see, I sent this goat, and you didn't find her." Well, 3 months went by. About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been immoral. Moreover, she is pregnant by immorality." And Judah said, "Bring her out, let her be burned." And she was being brought out. She sent word to her father-in-law, "By the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant." And she said, "Please identify whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." Then Judah identified them and said, "She's more righteous than I, since I didn't give her to my son Shelah." And he didn't know her again. When the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." But as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out. And she said, "What a breach you've made for yourself." Therefore his name was called Perez, and he is in the line of Jesus. Afterward his brother came out with the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Judah, Tamar, Perez, all in the line of Jesus in Matthew. God uses the best of us and the worst of us for his purposes. Yep, God works through man as well as through nature, that his will would be done. So, as hard as this is to read, read this, and then go read about Ruth. See, there's a name mentioned in there also. God bless. See you later.